We finally got there, through the prequels and into the original trilogy. Here's my review of the original Star Wars. Hey guys, how's it going? Star Wars was written and directed by George Lucas and released in 1977 and is one of the most pivotal films in my personal film history. I remember watching this film countless times as a kid. It was one of those films we had on Betamax, then on VHS, and I just used to play it over and over and over again, and I probably wore out numerous tapes with this movie on it. It is absolutely ingrained in everything that I am today. I absolutely love this film, and it's one that even today still holds up in many ways. The thing with Star Wars is you could easily be fooled into thinking it was released recently. Even though it was made and released in 1977, the only giveaways are things like the haircuts and some of the clothing styles, but even that has carried on as a star within the Star Wars galaxy. The film itself has absolutely very few flaws in it, and is one that I never ever get bored of watching, and I must have seen it hundreds if not thousands of times. I lose track on how many times I've had it. I've also purchased this film countless times. I own it twice on VHS, at least 2 or 3 times on DVD through various box sets, Blu-ray, digital download. I must have bought this film at least 7 or 8 times throughout its life. And Lucasfilm are obviously raking it in because the film is still making money today. George Lucas' original idea was he was going to tell the story of Star Wars in episodic form, which he did, through the eyes of 2 droids, C-3PO and R2-D2. It's very much in the style of the old cinematic movies that used to be episodic. So the movie opens as a rebel cruiser is being chased down by a Star Destroyer, and this must have looked absolutely amazing in 1977 on the big screen, as this huge Star Destroyer just goes over your head and it just seems to go on forever. Eventually it catches the rebel cruiser and we get a dogfight as the rebel troops fight their way off and try and hold the Imperial forces back, eventually showing the villain of the piece, Darth Vader. As I mentioned, this film is told through the eyes of the 2 droids, and we see R2-D2 hiding in a corridor receiving some sort of communication from a beautiful woman dressed in white. C-3PO eventually catches up with R2-D2 and then make their escape in an escape pod down to the planet of Tatooine, where they are promptly, after a few arguments, caught by Jawas. And the scenes with R2-D2 and C-3PO are very, very good in that for the whole beginning of this movie we're just seeing these 2 robots, these 2 droids, and we get to see very little of the human characters. Before I go any further, I will mention that this review will have spoilers in it, so if you're one of the very few people that haven't seen Star Wars, I would probably watch the film before watching this review. Otherwise, don't complain that I haven't told you that there's spoilers in it, because there are. So R2-D2 and C-3PO, after splitting up and going their separate ways, both get caught by the Jawas, and they end up at the Lars farm where the Jawas try to sell them. Owen Lars, Luke Skywalker's uncle, initially wants to buy C-3PO and another droid from the Jawas. He doesn't want R2-D2 until the droid that he wants to buy blows up. C-3PO recommends R2-D2 to Owen Lars and he takes him. Then Luke is given the task of cleaning them up and getting them ready for work. Luke Skywalker is introduced as a very whiny teenage kid who doesn't want to be working on his uncle's farm. He wants to go off and fight in the rebellion. So he gets very whiny when he's asked to do things, and when he mentions to his uncle that he wants to join the academy, he basically gets asked to work for another year, and he really gets so whiny here. But this is basically the way his character is set up. We know that he's going to develop over the course of the movie, so when he starts whining about wanting to go to the Toshi station to pick up some power converters and other things, we know this is eventually going to change. R2-D2 makes his escape after Luke finds a message on R2-D2 and he wants to know more. He removes R2-D2's restraining bolt and R2-D2 promptly stops playing back the message of Princess Leia. When that's why he won't play the message back, he pretends that he doesn't know what the message is all about and it must be something old. So R2-D2 escapes. The next day Luke and C-3PO go after him and they eventually catch up with him before being attacked by Tusken Raiders, Sand People. These guys are promptly scared off by Ben Kenobi, who rescues Luke, R2 and C-3PO and takes them back to his house. It's here where Obi-Wan introduces Luke to the idea of the Force and he gives him his father's lightsaber. Obi-Wan starts to explain to Luke about his father, how he used to be a Jedi Knight and fight with Obi-Wan until he was murdered by Obi-Wan's apprentice who turned into Darth Vader. Luke's mesmerised by his lightsaber, and when Ben Kenobi finally finds the message, Princess Leia explains that she needs Ben Kenobi to go to Alderaan to help in the rebel efforts. Ben asks Luke to go with him, but Luke says he can't go because he has responsibilities on the farm, and that he can take him to Angerhead or wherever he's going. So en route to Mos Eisley, Luke and Obi-Wan run into the transport that the Jawas had, and they've all been killed by Imperial stormtroopers. Luke panics because he thinks that they may have traced the Jawas back to his farm, so he races off to go and see if he can help his family. By the time he gets there, his uncle and aunt have both been killed, so he decides to go with Obi-Wan on the mission. And this is where the film really kicks into high gear. They head to Mos Eisley, and after Obi-Wan does the Jedi mind trick on some stormtroopers, Luke starts to learn more about the Force. They meet up with Han Solo and Chewbacca, and then they fly off en route to Alderaan. So already in the movie we're starting to see a lot of character development. This movie really stands out for me in that it is very, very good. A lot better than the prequels in telling the story. The story is very simple and the story is very linear and it's very easy to follow. It's not trying to trick anybody and it's not trying to do anything other than tell a very, very simple story, a classical story, cowboys and Indians in space. And the way it's done is absolutely fantastic. George Lucas really did a good job writing and directing this movie. So our team is now en route to Alderaan. Luke is starting his training and learning about the Force under the tutelage of Obi-Wan. Han Solo and Chewbacca are at the helm of the Millennium Falcon. And when they reach Alderaan, they find there's nothing there. There's just rubble. This is because earlier Princess Leia had been caught by the Imperial forces, interrogated, and finally gave Grand Moff Tarkin the location of the rebel base. The location she gave them may have been incorrect, but they didn't know that. They just knew it was too far to make an effective demonstration of their new super weapon, the Death Star. So they decided to destroy her home planet of Alderaan, which they were quite close to. So the planet is destroyed by the Death Star. And again, the special effects here are absolutely fantastic. You would not believe this film was made 40 years ago. The effects are as good as anything you would get in a movie today. And I actually will go on record as saying I think the effects are better than in the prequels because a lot of it is done real. A lot of it is with models and they just look so much better than they do with some of the CGI in the movies that came like 20 odd years later. In the distance they spot what they think is a small moon with a TIE fighter heading towards it. When they get closer they realise it's not a moon but in fact it is a space station. Even though nothing has been seen this size before, it's a space station. A tractor beam locks onto the Millennium Falcon and drags them on board. So after hiding out in some smuggling compartments while the Imperials search the ship, Luke, Han, Chewie, the two droids and Obi-Wan make their way into the Death Star and they start looking for Princess Leia. Obi-Wan goes off on his own to release the tractor beam that's holding the Millennium Falcon in place. Han Solo is somewhat reluctant to go and rescue Princess Leia because he doesn't want a full-on battle with all of the forces that will be in their way, until Luke convinces him that she's rich and he's going to get a massive reward out of it, which kind of convinces him. This movie does a really good job of fleshing out the characters and we get to see the motivations on what drives each of these characters, and it is something that is sorely lacking in the prequels, to be fair. These characters, we understand their motivations, we see what drives them and we see what makes them who they are, and each character does go on a character arc throughout the movie and we see them develop and grow, which is something I think is absolutely fantastic. So ultimately they manage to rescue Princess Leia and eventually get their way out of there. And we get some fantastic scenes here where Princess Leia really shows that she's got balls. And she's absolutely fantastic. And Carrie Fisher is so beautiful in this movie. It is unbelievable. She's absolutely stunning. And from what I remember, she's probably one of my earliest crushes. She's absolutely amazing in this movie. And she was throughout the series. Ben Kenobi manages to release the tractor beam that's holding the Millennium Falcon, and on his way back to the Falcon he manages to come face to face with his old apprentice Darth Vader, where we get to see Vader and Obi-Wan face off. And we get to see a very, very simple lightsaber fight compared with what we saw in the prequels. But we've got to remember the prequels came 20 years after, so the technology had come so much further and the choreography had come so much further. But we get to see a nice lightsaber battle between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader before Obi-Wan finally just holds his lightsaber up and lets Darth Vader kill him. He just disappears, which is something that we learned in the prequel he'd been training for. So Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie and the droids manage to make their escape in the Falcon, and what we get next is an absolutely fantastic dogfight between the TIE Fighters and the Millennium Falcon. And once again, and I've got to really say that the special effects are absolutely fantastic. They're so realistic, and you could be fooled for actually believing you're in space. I mean, the special effects are mind-blowing for saying that this film is 40 years old. Absolutely fantastic. So they make their way escape after destroying the TIE Fighters and go to the Rebel base. After analysing the data within R2, they formulate a plan using X-Wing fighters. They're going to fly along the Death Star, fire torpedoes inside the exhaust port and blow the Death Star up that way. Easier said than done. Yeah, okay. So they managed to do that, and we get a massive epic battle in space here with TIE fighters, X-Wing fighters and all of the other ships. This is an absolutely fantastic part of the movie, and it's one that is absolutely in my top scenes of the whole series. This is epic, and it is absolutely fantastic. Again, I can't take my hat off and give enough praise to the special effects department. Even the original version, I'm not talking about George Lucas's special editions, the original versions, the scenes here are absolutely fantastic and rival anything that would come out today. So anyway, eventually Luke Skywalker manages to blow up the Death Star. They get back to the Rebel base, they all get medals, except Chewbacca for some reason, and that's it, the end of the movie. This is a movie that has so many fantastic memories for me. As I mentioned, I remember seeing this as a kid. I remember having all the Star Wars figures, the ships, the Legos, absolutely everything, and I love this movie so dearly. It's very difficult to be impartial about talking about this movie because it has so many memories, but this movie is something that I really love. I never get bored of watching it, ever. I watched it again yesterday to do this review, and there's just something about this movie. It's so innocent, it's so sweet, and it is so amazing. It completely builds this whole world. You don't question anything, and it is a movie that I really think holds up today and is better than a lot of the films that have come after it. So in terms of the cast, going to keep this really simple. Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, Peter Mathew, Anthony Daniels, Kenny Baker, James Earl Jones, David Prowse, Peter Cushing, all are absolutely fantastic, perfectly cast, and I cannot pick a fault with any of their characters or any of their acting. They all do absolutely fantastically. The musical score by John Williams is epic, and it makes the film what it is. Even without the musical score, this would be a great film, but the musical score just takes it to the next level, and it is a musical score that I can actually just sit and listen to. Star Wars is a film I can't hype enough. It is a movie that has gone through generations. It's inspired filmmakers, it's inspired loads and loads of other people in loads of different areas and genres, me included. This movie stands head and shoulders above anything else that was coming out around the same time as it, and even now, I cannot find anything to draw negatives on with this movie, and I cannot give it any score other than but giving it 5 out of 5. Yes, Star Wars gets 5 out of 5. It is a movie that has stood the test of time. It is fantastic, and I cannot give it anything other than a full 5 out of 5. I love this movie, and it is one that is so pivotal in the movie making industry that it couldn't be anything else. So anyway guys, thanks for watching. Let me know down below what you thought of Star Wars. Give a thumbs up if you like this review, and please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next month for The Empire Strikes Back. See you later. Bye.